All right, so today we're going to continue on with our little program here that gets a string from the user and prints out a box. Let's create a class that we can use in multiple programs. And I think that the easiest one to do is to get this get string out of here. I think that could be useful in other programs that we might write later on. Okay, so let's extract this out into its own class. So to do that, we need to create a new file, and we're going to create a Java class, and we're going to call it, I don't know, get data. I'm going to call it get data. All right, get data. So this is a class, and if we use that new file, it creates this template of documentation, much like the header that I required on Ruby. Remember that? You can edit this if you go to File Settings, File Templates. So we go to File Settings, File Templates, which are somewhere here. File and code templates. Here we go. So you can look at a new class, Java class, and create this yourself. You can modify this information here. Okay, so I don't want to do that. I'm just going to take this out, call it my get data, and we need to have a method in here that's going to return some information. So, and we're going to add some more methods to this. But for now, we need to go get our data getter. This is a method we already created, getString. So I'm going to cut this out and put it in my getData method class. Now, because I pasted all of this, it says, oh, you need to have these other imported packages, because all three of these are used in this one class. So I say, okay. So it imports the required packages, a lot like gems and things like that. They're importing pre-written code that help us write this code. So this method, we no longer want it to be private. Otherwise, we'd never be able to get at it. So we need to change this to public. And we're going to return a string. And the rest should be the same. The rest should work identically. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so in my main program now, I need to, these are no longer used. If you hover over these, it grays them out. So we can take these out because they're imported with the class that we're going to use. So this getString, it doesn't know what this is anymore. So I need to, how do I access a class method? Right, I use the name of the class before it, getData.getString. And notice if I just start typing data dot, IntelliSense from IntelliJ here comes back and knows that I already have a method in here called getString that takes a string as an input. So it found that in my project already. So everything is all happy. All right, so let's run this and make sure that everything still runs. Oh, thank you. So enter size of box. Let's do a five-sided box, and it works fine. Remember that yesterday I changed this to do a loop of a bunch of boxes. So that was all this stuff here. We will comment those out. All right. Pretty cool, huh? Isn't that nice? So now my main program is cleaner. I have a generic get data class now that I could use this file and put it into any other project and start using that code that I've written. So any questions on any of that, how we did that? Very similar to Ruby classes. By now you should know what a class is, so I'm not going to spend too much time on what that is. Any questions on that? No. All right. So let's talk about the concept of overloading. Overloading is a way that Java uses to define multiple methods that are named the same, but they take different arguments. So I can name another method in here called getString, and if I don't pass it any arguments, for instance, that becomes a whole new method that Java knows about. It defines its methods or its functions, and not just by the name, but by the parameters that are passed into it. So those two in a combination can create a whole new method, and those become overloaded methods. So I should be able to write a public static string get string without anything and return, do the same kind of code here. Okay, so I could copy this, paste it up here, and now I have a method, and we'll take out the prompt, right? We're not going to print anything. Yeah, I haven't fixed that in this case. That was supposed to return part of the user input. We'll fix that later. So this is a new method called getString that is different than this getString. The reason it's different is because of the argument that's passed into it. So Java knows better. I can just call getString here, and as I start typing this, .get, notice how IntelliJ now knows there are two versions of this method. And you'll see a lot of this when you get into the Android. It depends on what you're passing to the method, determines what method gets called. All right? So I'm going to pass nothing, and it's going to call that, and if I run it, it hopefully will not print anything, right? There's no prompt, but it's still looking for something. Pardon me? Yeah, probably. The system.out.print. Yeah, see, I can print a Boolean, a char, a double, a float. I can do that all with print lines, same thing. So, yes. And you have to do that if you want to, you have to create a new method for every different type of argument that I pass in. Because, why? Strongly typed, right? Java's extremely strongly typed. Ruby wouldn't care about this. I could pass anything I wanted to in the input, and in the class or the method determine what I wanted to do with that based on what the type was. But and it can do that because it's interpreted. It's not compiled. When we have to compile a language into anything, even though it's a byte code interpreted language, it has to know exactly, you know, the bytes that you're passing in and what you're doing with it. So it's a lot more difficult. Yeah. No, if the user should know, it will get a compile error if you try to use print with an array. You know, it won't let you print an array, for instance. So it'll catch that on compilation. All right, everybody with me so far? So getString has now been, that's the nice computer sciencey term, it's overloaded, meaning it has two different ways of calling that method. Two different ways. Now, I've got a lot of extra code in here. And 99% of this code is the same. So how could I clean this up and make this less code to maintain? There you go. Now you're talking. So I could have this get string call this get string with nothing, right? A blank string. So let's try that and see if we can get that to work. And I can do that in one line by returning the value of calling get string with the prompt of nothing. All right, so get string comes in, doesn't have a prompt, so I'm going to call get string with nothing. And now I'm still using all this nice code. It's printing out nothing, and then it's going to continue on with the rest of the code. Isn't that awesome? So any questions on that? That should still work. Let's run it. Let's see. Pardon me? Oh, in my main program? Yeah. All right, my window was too far down. I didn't see it, so it's still looking for a number, printed a number. All right, isn't that sweet? So why did I name my class Get Data? Why do you think? Instead of Get String. Right. So let's extend our class by adding some additional methods. And so I want you to write a method that will get a number, and return an actual integer. So let's make it an integer. I want to get an int. All right, so I'll let you do that. All right, so what we need to do now is to write a method in our get data, and we're going to call it get int instead. So what is a get int going to return? An integer. So we need to declare our method as an integer. That's what it's going to return, and we're going to call it get int. We're going to pass in nothing for now, and we're going to do something. So the first thing, we already have methods in here to return a string, right? So I can just call get string here, and that will return a string from the user. Then what do I need to do with that? Parse it, right? So we did that yesterday with the parseInt, integer.parseInt. So I'm going to copy that from my main program. And we can do this all in one line because getString returns a string, and parseInt then will take that return string and parse it, returning an integer, and I can just return that integer. So in one line, I can return an integer instead of a string from this particular version. So let's go see if that works. So let's do size equals get data dot, and I've got a nice new get int here. And then let's print out the size instead, just so I can see what it is. Make sure that that comes in the same way. Let's delete this. All right, so let's run that guy. Oh, I found in here, there's a way, if I can remember where it is. Console font. I can make this bigger. Pause. I can make my console font bigger for us old people. Yeah. Lecture. Make this like 18 points instead, or even 24, nice and big. And now my console is bigger. So I'm going to enter 2. Oh, that was the first one, and here we'll enter 3. So this was the first get string. So user input was 2, and I got a 3, and I printed out a 3. This one? Okay, so it would be nice to have a method that passed in a prompt as well, right? So how would I overload this method to pass in a prompt at the same time? It's basically the same thing, so I'm going to copy and paste this guy. I'm going to pass in a string called prompt. And instead of calling getString, I'm going to call the getString version that has a prompt with it. That's it. That should do it. So now I've got 4 methods, 2 with prompts and 2 without, to get the integer from the user or get a string from the user. Right, so let's try getInt with a prompt. Enter the size of the box. Let's take this guy out. So we only have 1. Oh, I didn't take that out. All right, there we go. Enter the size of the box is 3, prints out a 3. Look at that. Is that beautiful? In here? No, because it's already doing that. This integer.parseInt is already returning an integer. I'm not sure where you're saying to cast it. Oh, that's a different issue. That's a try-catch problem. You should put that in the class. I would put that in the class, yes. Yeah. So I'm leaving that as an example for you guys to do, though. But yeah, you would need a try-catch around your parseInt here, just in case the user is stupid, which 99% of the time they are. No. Let the get data handle all of its own problems, ideally. So that my main program doesn't have to worry about that. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of try-catches around every get data. So it makes sense to move it down a level and have less code. All right, any questions on that? So how would we write a get double? Same way, right? It's essentially the same thing. Or a, I don't know what else you'd have. That's about all I can think of offhand. So that makes our main program a lot nicer. I can utilize this, enter the size of the box. I can call my square system.out.print let's do a print line of my square using x's. We can take this code out, take my user input out, and now my code is a lot smaller. Let's even take out the size so that I can run. Thank you. So now, what's the size of my box? 20 prints me a 20-sided box. It's not, because I typed 10, not 20. That's why. I was going to say, boy, that's short. That's not right. Dave Math, there you go. So formatting, again, is important. We use indenting. I like to separate out the declaration of my variables from the code with a horizontal spacing. So I put a blank line. That's just how I do it. I didn't do it there, but that's what I normally do. And again, you're grouping paragraphs of code. So there you are. All right. Any questions on any of this? All right. Read your book on the Java for Android. You should be able to skim through it pretty quickly and get up through classes because you know what an if statement is and an equals. How do I compare two things? Using the double equal sign, right? So it's identical to the languages you know already. So I'm not going to spend time on that stuff so that we can get into the Android faster. All right? Any questions? All right.